All right. Hello, hello, hello. This is Ross Vertel, faithful reader on the forums. I am here with some special coverage of March Madness for 2024, the Elite Eight, and I have a special guest star with me. How are you, Alan?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing all right? Okay, so I'm gonna bring up a fun little presentation here, and we will be able to go through these cards, talk about them, and have lots of fun while doing so. All right. Continuing committee March Madness 2024, the Elite Eight, down from 64, down from 32, down from 16. We're at the final eight. These cards will be going head to head. And without further ado, we're just going to be going down the list and starting with Admiral Wilrich. This first bracket is the final one that has affiliated personnel, VIP, some good skills, and also the fun ability to replace Admiral on your Office of the President with Cadet. Um, got some information straight from the official guide. And if you're looking for some metrics, here is his matchup history. Um, so, what do you think of the good old Admiral?
It's it's an interesting take on the Starfleet Academy that has been kind of floating in and out of files for years. I mean, Maquis is like 10 plus years old now. Um, Usually the gotcha is headquarters are universal, so that'll be why it's got the during your turn text on it, so that you're not hosing your opponent's fed and suddenly all their admirals don't report.
Yeah.
I
So the
I kind of, yeah, I'm fond of it. It's because I think the cadet deck, like, it logically makes sense it should be on Earth, and this is one way to do it. So,
Yeah. And I do like how once in play he replaces Admiral. So you could report him to the Office of the President and then just worry about cadets from then on.
yeah, there's you don't have a worry of somebody shooting them and turning your deck off.
Yes. Well, the other thing of note is this card, Training Cruise. Um, that lets cadets report to your ship. So it gives cadets another place to play to, well, another free place to go to. Um, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wilrick basically just turns on the I'm going to play a cadet deck, and then you get your this gives you your ship report. It gives you your free outlet. You get your home world protections.
yep. All right. And that brings us to the card it is going up against, the Lunar Hospital, Outpost, Shields 20, Weapons 5, Seeds on Durna, Seeds or Plays on Durna, does a cure, and it also can nullify a medical related dilemma once per turn. This is information from the player's guide. And this is the matchup history. Yeah, yes, it did blow things out of the water with the Kalpo.
Yep. Uh, I really like this one because it sets up some interesting decks that don't exist today. Like, it's here's your. I think the one that comes to mind is there's a Romulan Bajoran treaty that I don't think gets a whole lot of use, and now here is a good Romulan. Like, there's a reason to play that deck now.
Yeah. Um, I also like the medical bait dilemma cure, for lack of a better term. I know there was another card that had a similar effect with motion pictures, but if you could cure dilemmas with medical here, you're either not putting them here, you're overloading them here, just so that you can take that into account when you get your when you seed your dilemmas. Um, So I do want to bring up Derna. Um, so Derna itself, it gives you Romulan outposts when you solve it. You can't have both at the same location, I don't think.
No, so you are trading off the you won't take your free Romulan outpost, but I think the medical facility is just plain better. So this would just become your backup in case somebody actually shoots at your outpost, which may happen. The shields aren't that great on it. So
Well, the only thing with that is the shields are 20, but the shields with the outposts are 32.
yeah.
So if they're planning on destroying your outposts, they can destroy your um they could also destroy your medical complex.
Well, it'd happen in the other order, right? You'd
Oh,
siege your
right.
medical. Yeah.
Okay. And then looking at dilemmas with cure and medical dilemmas, I looked them all up. These are the big ones that jump to the top. Note the wording on the facility. You need it has to be either there or on a ship that's there. So if it just plays on the planet, you're out of luck. These are the two dilemmas that are used a lot that go on the ship. So this is another way for you to find a way to get rid of those.
And that's where being on Bajor region is a bit of a plus. Everything's nice and close. Presumably you're playing Bajor region or stuff that stays close to it. So if you get hit with one of these, you know, hopefully you're not too far away from your outpost to get the cure.
Yeah, and then I know that the Bajorans have ships that are good inside a region. I don't think the Romulans do.
No, they just
Okay,
fly around. So
yeah. All right. So between the Admiral and the Lunar Outpost, how do you think that's going to turn out?
I like the outpost. I suspect it's probably going to be the Admiral. I think there's more love for the cadets out there.
Yeah, this is just one of those matchups that we're going to lose either way.
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going to happen to these cards that don't make it, but I would really like to see both of these coming off my printer at some point.
Yeah. I suspect there's been enough attempts at the Cadet Starfleet Academy that if it loses here, some other version will show up sooner or later. So,
Yep. All right, moving on. We have mostly uninteresting. Assigning class M planet, download, non-aligned matching the matching skill and solving away team, or an equipment artifact, or the Vulcan database. This is the information from the player's guide. And these are the metrics. And you've got to love a card that gives you some options.
yeah, I'm actually a little surprised this one has done this well because Class M Planet is not exactly a powerhouse, and the personnel download is okay. Like the artifact is that's just replacing the seed you spent to get this one. Every time I read it, I keep thinking it should just blanket all the Class M planets. But
Yeah, we'll take a look at that in a moment. I did spend several weeks trying to figure out how to break these cards. My first thought with getting a non-aligned personnel in was just to get Vic Fontaine because he downloads any card when facing a dilemma.
hmm.
But then you have to match a skill, and Vic's only skill is music. So there are ways that you can finagle a personnel, but it does require, well, some finagling.
Yeah. And it's you're spending a seed card. You probably can get Vic for a seed card
Right.
easier that doesn't require a solve. So
And then just to bring up the Universal Planet, you can see why a lot of decks don't use this card.
yeah. And that's that I think this is why I keep wanting to read it as being a blanket, because okay, they can't steal your 20-point mission, which is that's good, but it's a seed card to protect a 20-point mission.
Yeah. I mean, you can mission specialist up to 25, but then you'll still need to solve 4 of them to win. I do note that we are starting to get a little more free from unbalanced mission profiles. So it is a little, well, not a little safer, but it is a little more modern, so to speak, to have a lot of to have 5 or more planets or 5 or more space missions out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's why my brain thinks that that card is a little on the weak side, because it's, even with a mission specialist, it's a 25 pointer and you still got to eat 3 dilemmas to get through it. So I think there's a bit more room to make that card better.
Yeah. So we should note that the card that wins isn't going straight into production. It's going back into the playtest file. So objects in mirror might be shinier than they appear. Cards on text may change, might go through changes.
Yeah.
All right. And it is going up against A Man Alone. You get to download and seed up to 2 of Hate Crime, Angry Mob, Frame for Murder, and Assassin's Blades. And before you encounter them, they stop 1 security. I believe they're all dual dilemmas, so they're all squires. Here's the information on it, and here are the metrics. And yes, it blew through that first round.
Oh yeah.
So there is a countdown on this, but yeah, we've seen dilemma downloaders before, and yeah, this is one that's not titled State or Shades of Gray. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and downloading seeds are, I think they're stronger than most people think. Like, even just on the face of it, this is 1 dilemma that gets you 2 dilemmas. And even before you add on the extra stop, it's a runtime decision. You get to hit this, see what your opponent, what do you know about this mission attempt, and then dial in the 2 dilemmas that you want in front of it.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of the dilemmas, those once again are Hate Crime, Angry Mob, Frame for Murder, and Assassin's Blade. So
and there's 3 of those are opponent's choice. Like,
yes. Well, I took a look at this, and like you said, it is, well, quite a dilemma to choose from. I did like how Hate Crime punishes the species, and Angry Mob, that kills a security member right there. So you could really go into killing security, especially if they're trying to get through that strength greater than 50 attribute.
and frame for, because you get 2 of them, so frame for murder is a pretty strong lead in, because you can go tag the security. It looks like most of these are security.
Yeah.
So stop a security, frame a security, and then angry mob them, or Assassin's Blade, or however you want to follow up.
Yeah, so Hate Crime is the only one that specifically doesn't have security. And that just gives you an option if your opponent either has a lot or not a lot of security. But yeah, these are 4 fun cards that I wouldn't mind finding a way to mess my opponent up with. Okay, so A Man Alone is going up against Mostly Uninteresting. How do you think that'll go?
I like Man Alone. Mostly Uninteresting. There's a neat idea there, but like I've been saying, I don't think it's actually as strong as it. There's a lot of words there, but there's a few too many ors in those sentences.
Yeah. All right. So 4 down, 4 to go. Next up is the 98th rule of acquisition. It's rule Caesar plays on table. Once each turn, you get an acquisition personnel free if they don't have any funky stuff, and then place the event on them. And they don't become Ferengi; they add Ferengi. So here is the information, and here is the matchup history. So I know that you're not a huge fan of getting stuff in play and doing stuff. So this doesn't do a download. Acquisitions are either you have them or you don't.
Yeah.
This might be able to get you someone in for free, and then you don't have to use them as Ferengi.
Well, yeah, because you could run it that way. The other piece is it's I read this as just a variant of Cybok and Khan, where it's you are now making the the Ferengi acquisition treaty,
Yeah.
which might yeah, I didn't do a really deep dive into who's around for acquisition, but anytime you get to go pull people out of all other affiliations, it's a little dangerous.
So my interns did do a deep dive into all the acquisition personnel. These are the two that came to mind. Kaylin, who's a mission specialist, assigned mission specialist, yay points. And then Hanok, who can download any rule card. So I'll see if we can link the list of acquisition personnel down below in the show notes. Most of them are Ferengi anyway. These were the two that jumped mind going out of the color pie, so to speak.
Yeah.
And again, remember, it's not a download. You still need to draw them and play them as you would normally.
Yeah. And if Hanok's the top one, then I feel a little better about it because he's in the right frame.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't do too huge a dive, but those were the two that just jumped out right at me as being the two that would
Yeah.
stand out. And of
Yeah. The
course, with
danger will be acquisition folks who happen to have like because Hanok, it doesn't freak me out too much because it's okay. It's diplomacy, it's smuggling, it's engineer. And maybe engineer's not super common for Ferengi, but I mean smuggling's no big win. A rules card is handy, but they have ways of doing that. It'll be when you start seeing the acquisition people who have really strong skills that are not in the Ferengi's wheelhouse.
right. Well, so I believe it's not a special skill on there.
It's for
Oh, it's
free
for
if they
free if
don't
they
have a
don't have a
special
special
skill.
skill. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you'd get Quaylen for free. Tannock, you still got to pay retail for, but
Yeah. All right. And remember, if you do Kalen through a mission specialist, he's Klingon. He doesn't add the Ferengi affiliation icon.
yeah, because you actually have to use the ability to get it. So
Right. And then going up against the 98th rule is I'm a doctor, not an engineer. Adds engineer physics to your medical personnel until the end of the turn. Or you can replace a medical with an engineer or an engineer with your medical. These are the player's guide information. And this is the matchup history. Yeah, it did, once again, great out of the gate.
yeah.
So my interns flat out refused to look up all medical personnel and all engineer personnel. I'm sure there's tricks that you could do. I really don't think there's anything especially groundbreaking.
No, because there's a few other, like they said, there's a whole line of these, and there's other ones that have being able to swap to engineer is a little more general than I think. I think the previous one was geology, I want to say offhand.
Right.
So there's probably some shenanigans in there, but you're still playing an interrupt. If you do the replace, you're not actually coming out ahead on personnel. At best, you're just swapping probably your mission specialist into somebody into your bridge crew. I would imagine would be the play for that, but
Yeah, and adding the engineer, it doesn't have the classification, so you can't do equipment. I imagine you have engineer astrophysics in your deck already, which makes this more of a nice to have, but nothing you'll really be hugely relying on.
yeah, it's I don't think any of the I'm a Doctor chain have ever been like breakout stars. They look good, but it's a card in the deck, it's a card play. You know, is it do you want this slot to be to add a one turn engineer astrophysics, or do you just go grab somebody with engineered astrophysics and put them in the deck?
Yeah. All right. So between I'm a doctor, not an engineer, and the 98th rule, leaning more towards the 98th rule.
Uh, I'll be honest, I'm not as neither of them really excite me much. I'd lean to I'm a doctor. It's the adding Ferengi. I don't know, something about it just sets off the are we about to do something terribly terrible? So
Yeah. All right. So if these two aren't too big on your radar, they will be going up against the winner from the final bracket, which might be Emblem of Fair Trade. You need a couple rules in play to activate it. Your Ferengi personnel can use 2 acquisition instead of some skills. This is the information from the guide, and these are the metrics. So the one thing that jumped out with me when I saw this was law, just because that isn't something that a lot of affiliations really have easy access to. This will give that to the Ferengi, but there's not a whole lot that they can do with that. I took a look. It's on a mission or so. It's on a dilemma or so, but nothing that's really jumping out is give this to the Ferengi and it'll break everything.
the first thing that jumped out on me is I don't know why it's called an emblem, being that it's a riff of Art of Diplomacy. But yeah, that's just nerdery. The
Yeah.
other thing that jumped out is because the comparison that comes to mind is Art of Diplomacy and the various stack-ons for that, the take treachery, use it as diplomacy, or that sort of thing. And this is like to get 6 skills on demand is like that's a stronger version, and I don't know if acquisition is that rare of a skill that Ferengi aren't going to have more than enough to pay to be whichever of those 6 skills they need at any given moment.
Not just that, but this broadcasts.
Yeah. Yeah, this is global. You do that, you get 2 rules in play, which if you're playing Ferengi, you should have first out. And I mean, getting a second one is not exactly a big ask. And then you just prioritize your acquisition guys.
Yeah, it's not an equipment card, so it can't be disruptor overloaded. Yeah, I'd like this either more in a location or with less skills, but it's one of those. I kind of like where you're going somewhat.
Yeah. Like I would wonder if Ferengi really need a way to dial in treachery. I never got the sense that, they were short on that. Law, like you said, it's one of those, it doesn't happen a whole lot, but when you need it, you need it. So I don't super hate that. Diplomacy is kind of the traditional, turn treachery into diplomacy, so that doesn't bug me. Honor is mildly funny in context. And Ferengi, traditionally, officer and security are not exactly their strong points. So it'll be interesting to see if the conversion ends up giving them far too much of it.
Yeah. All right. So the emblem is going up against Cat's Paw. Um, unless animal present, opponent downloads an animal. or download and seed one dilemma with animal and title or game text. Discard dilemma. Information from the Hero's Guide is up on screen. Here is the matchup history. Every bracket has that one odd, how did they get in there? And then how do they really do that well? This is that fun card for me. This isn't an amazing card, but there's a lot of fun stuff you can do. And animals are those things that you won't necessarily have, but you now can do more fun things with them.
Yeah. Well, and I think, not to throw too much shade on its matchups, but I think it had an easier run up because Kilra was a ship and the ships just didn't do fantastically good. The other two were fairly niche cards. Like they didn't really scream, and then or the kitty card. Like,
Yeah. Let me see. The only thing is, I'm not sure how much use the first clause will have because you're generally not running too many animals in a deck, and you need an animal to download the animal.
no, it's because the animal is the out. So if I don't have an animal, you get to go get an
Oh,
animal.
okay. Never mind
And I
then.
think, yeah, and I think you could just read like the unless is almost redundant because how nobody's going to pack animals to deal with cat spa. So
Right. Um, so looking at dilemmas with animal and title or game text, the one dilemma with animal and title is Q's vicious animal things. There are a few more that have animal and game text. These are the two that jump to the top of the pile with that, a nuclear disarmament and primal urges. You've got a wall, you've got um, another wall. um, and
but
I go ahead.
but would you take one of these dilemmas or would you take spot and just go straight for the I stop somebody, and I am opposing you while you shoot me 9 times to get me off the board?
Right. Well, if this comes out as part of a set, one of the tricks to the sets is also including a card that works with it. So like if we got Cat's Paw in the set, there would almost certainly be either an animal in the set or a dilemma with animal in the title or a game text. So
Yeah.
that would add a little more potency to it. Um, so are we pretty much leaning towards Cat's Paw eking out Emblem of Fair Trade?
Uh, I I think the emblem's going to take it because the animal is cute, but the emblem is actually Ferengi tech. And my money is either at least one of the emblem or 98th is going to make the cut. Like, and it's probably just Ferengi fans deciding which one they like better.
Yeah.
The animal one's adorable. I don't know how much play it would get other than uh, it's a guaranteed way to go grab spot. And usually, I think the last time they had to download an animal, I think spot got called out as a like you can't have spot. So
Yes. All right. So that pretty much brings us to Go Team Fight Win. Until 8 a.m. August, 8 a.m. Pacific time, April 1st. That's when the round closes. Then we'll be down to the final four, then two, and then we'll have a winner. Get your votes in. You could win a promo, and we'll see how things shape up. Um, anything else before we close?
not just for folks like go vote, like the early rounds, maybe it's a bit of a slog to go through 32 or 16 mashups. This one's just 4 votes. It's a good time to jump in if you haven't yet.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much for joining me, Alan. Thank you for Charlie, the March Madness squad, and everyone involved who got this going. This takes a lot more work behind the scenes to get up and running. Charlie makes it seem awesome and amazing, but there's a lot of work that goes into this. Huge thanks to everyone that voted. Keep on voting. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the deep dive.